Yeah, so in the short term, yesterday was a very, very important day from a technical standpoint. And what we saw yesterday was a follow through from the previous big up day. And then what we saw was we touched the 25,000 level, actually piercing it. And then the negative was the reversal, right? So I think any technician looks at that and says, okay, that's a topping tail, that's a reversal day. You have to be a little bit careful if you're a Bitcoin bull when you see that type of price action, because essentially what it needs is you saw this massive amount of euphoria, FOMO with retail investors in Bitcoin buying in. And then we saw somehow a reversal of epic proportion, which again wasn't the small investor selling all of a sudden, right? I mean, the small investor's not saying, oh, 25 at the top here. It's usually the bigger money. And so when you see bigger money unloading, you have to pay attention to that. And so at this point, that's a top, right? Now, again, can tops be violated? Can they be broken? Absolutely. But I never want to jump the gun. I want it to prove itself before I go on that side. So right now, you have a top at around 25,300 on Bitcoin. And unless that gets taken out with a daily close, you have to respect that as a short-term top. Near term, I do expect Bitcoin to come back in. And even over the midterm, I still think there's trouble brewing in the crypto market. So I'm not a person that thinks the lows are in yet. I know that may sound crazy to a lot of investors in Bitcoin after this big run. But again, I would just draw my attention. If I zoom out on this chart, this is a great bounce, nothing to take away from it. But in the scheme of the move and in the scheme of the bear market, we have to keep in mind that by no means are we back above major technical levels. Like 25,000 is a technical level. It's a mid-level one. But to be honest, I'll show you where the big one is. The big one is at 30,000 right here. And the reason why psychologically this is a big level is because this was your mid-period of the 2021 bull market, right? This was the low pivot right here. So basically, I'm saying to myself is that if for me to be convinced that the lows are in on Bitcoin, we need to trade above, not just for a day, but I want to see it hold above for a little while above 30,000. And then I would say, okay, the lows are in. But until that, I think this could be a bear market rug pull rally, and I would be very careful.
Bitcoin hit new 6-month highs this week as the latest innings of its 2023 recovery kept the bull-bear debate raging. After a consolidatory start to the month, February has become a reckoning point for Bitcoin price strength. Gains have been harder to cement than in January, when BTC USD finished up nearly 40%. Hello and welcome to Crypto Street. In today's video, founder and chief market strategist at inthemoneystocks.com and verified crypto investing, Gareth Soloway updates about Bitcoin's current market standing, the final bottom in crypto, and his outlook for Bitcoin in 2023.
Yeah, so as of now, I do think we do take out the lows of, I think it was around 15,700, and we probably head down to 12 to 13. I still am in the camp that we have to have max pain in the crypto market, so you're probably talking about a pierce of 10 to achieve that. That would be where most retail would probably really panic and consider dumping their bags, if you will. So I'm still in that camp. I think the driving force isn't going to be another FTX. Like, I'm not really envisioning that there's going to be a ton more of these major fraud scenarios. The way we get to that lower target is probably with a macro recession, right? So if we think about it, we know that the Fed, and even yesterday we heard from Fed presidents that they were going to likely raise rates further. We saw the PPI numbers are still very hot. And so they're going to keep interest rates high for a long period, at least the entire year. It's very hard for me to imagine that Bitcoin and the stock market can withstand that, and more importantly, that the economy can withstand that. So at some point we slip into a recession. If that's the case, the S&P probably has another 25% down at least. And if the S&P drops 25%, the question you have to ask is, how does Bitcoin fare during that period, right? So for me, I got to imagine that Bitcoin would at least drop. I mean, just to get back to the lows, we drop about 8 to 9,000, right in that vicinity. And then the question is, do we go even lower with the S&P collapsing that much? And I think we do. I think that that's the next sell. So you had the first phase of this bear market, which was kind of the bankruptcies and everything like that. You'll see some of that continue if we go down to the levels that I say. But I think that the big driving force won't be unregulated crypto. I think the regulations are coming. It's going to be more the macro environment where people get very, very risk adverse. Yeah, and you're 100% right? So we had this scenario where coming into 2023, it was initially, it was the first half that's going to be horrendous, and then I heard about a recovery in the second half. Well, we've obviously seen the jobs numbers be amazing, and the economy is holding up in the first half, and we're already, we're not at the end of the first quarter yet, but we're not too far away. So now you're seeing it shift, and I think so. You're already proving some of those people wrong, and you're right. When the majority says something, it's usually not the case. So the question is, are they going to kind of just continue to shift down the pike, if you will, to kind of push that into the second half? And that's where I am. I'm in the second half camp, where I think the first half remains strong. I think the economy, again, remains strong. But I think the second half is where we start to see weakness. And then I also see that it's going to drag into 2024. So I think a lot of these economists that are saying this are just early to the punch. I think they're ultimately going to be right, but a lot of them will question themselves. Like listen, we all do, right? I've been in many, many trades where it goes against me. I'm like, wait a minute, was my thesis incorrect here? And that's just the nature of trading and analyzing and stuff like that. So that's where I am. One of the things that I'll point out too, which has me nervous about Bitcoin for 2024, is everyone is saying that it's going to start rallying into the halving, right? And that makes me very nervous that everyone is anticipating that, especially when you have totally different scenarios where you don't have the Fed printing money, you don't have interest rates near zero like they've been for the last so long, right? So there's like these things like you're mentioning about that. When everyone's saying something, that gets me a little bit nervous.
The weekly chart perhaps represents the biggest struggle in the wake of the 2022 bear market. Bitcoin is currently attempting to beat out an area of resistance it failed to conquer last August, so far without success. Ultimately, a weekly close above this key area is what BTC needs to achieve to break this confluent area of resistance to continue moving higher.
I do think there's that possibility, right? I mean, every good trader will always say, okay, this is my thesis, and there might be a 70 to 80% chance that that's correct. But remember, that leaves 20 to 30% that you could be wrong. So there's absolutely that thesis that means we could have a bottom in place. For me, it's the charts, again, if you look back even at 2017, there was this secondary dip that we saw back down to the 3,500 level before we really took off. So at least we went back to double bottom back in, I think it was early 2019 maybe, when we did that. But again, there's this need to go back and retrace at least to those lows and kind of retest it, right? And that's kind of, at least in the very least, what I think has to happen. But for me, it's like, you look at the landscape in crypto, and I still can't get my head around how so many coins could still survive through this kind of flushing period. Right? It just doesn't, if this is the low, then all these coins are going to survive and everyone's going to become zillionaires again. And that's not the way these markets work. And again, I can reckon back to the .com era and watching what happened. I mean, there were so many .com companies that were junk, but they got these crazy valuations. But then when the flush came, they actually did get wiped out. They got wiped out, or they got bought out for pennies on the dollar. And we haven't really seen that in crypto yet. We've seen some bankruptcies. We've seen FTX. But it's not the flush out that notes, for me, bottoms. The other thing I would say too is, I don't know how much you guys pay attention to the sentiment indicator, but to me, I follow Twitter very closely. I follow social media closely for that analysis on what the human condition is telling us. What's the majority telling us? And I don't know if you've seen how much bullishness has been out there, but if you go back to lows in almost any market, in a bear market, when you get that first 30% bounce, most people are so fearful that they don't even believe it's going to go up. They're like, this can't be the bottom, because I've been fooled too many times. Here, you see people like, oh, this is 100% the bottom, and that makes me nervous. I'm just like, something's wrong here. The first thing I would do is I would go to the charts and I say, okay, if we take the high from 2017 and we draw a line through here, we connect these last two high pivots. That would be, so to me, that's a trend line that I would pay attention to. And if we did get up there, that would probably be a shortable trading opportunity. Now, the question is how, again, it's hard to see where that is. Right now, if we went straight up to that level, it's only around 75,000. And that would be the case if we went, a year out. It probably isn't above 100 yet. So if we go up, if we enter a new bull market, I think you're on the right track there, where I don't know what that number would coincide with that formula, but it would be interesting to see, and you might be able to run this, is, does this trend line, let's say we hit that bull market in a year, does it coincide with that trend line sloping up on the charts? But I think that's fascinating, and I can see that. As Bitcoin gets bigger, right, it's going to be harder for it to go up as much, right? So you have the law of large numbers. You're not going to see Apple go up 10% a day anymore. Whereas a billion-dollar company, it could do that no problem. You don't see that anymore when it's a $3 trillion or $2 trillion company. So I think that has to be taken into account, and that you will start to see smaller bull cycles. But again, they will be bull cycles, no doubt about it.
Closer to home, intraday activity remains tantalizingly opaque as Bitcoin bulls cling to a portion of the week's upside. 2 trips above $25,000 have nonetheless failed to result in a resistance support flip, and at the time of writing, BTC USD traded at around $24,500. While Rekt Capital is celebrating a confirmed breakout, others remain fearful that the entire episode has been the result of manipulation by market whales.
So I love that premise, because that's something that I've even said about the stock market recently, that we probably will make new all-time highs for 10 to 15 years. And again, there's a lot of proof in history that does happen after these crazy moves. For instance, the NASDAQ.com bubble took 15 years for the NASDAQ to make a new high. If you look at the Chinese stock market, if you look at the Brazilian stock market, they still haven't made new all-time highs since 2007, 2008. And so again, when you get these meteoric rises, there's a tendency for it to need, think about it like this. You run a marathon, right? And none of us are marathon runners. You're not getting up the next day and running another marathon. You and I are probably going to need like a month of rest.
I would be dead.
So, yeah, exactly, right? So you have to look at it like that, where you have to take that time to digest that move. And I'm in full force with that. That type of action would absolutely flush out the crap. The crap couldn't survive without constant gains to the upside.
So, what are your thoughts about Gareth Soloway's prediction? Tell us in the comments. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you soon with the next video. Thank you so much for watching.